The other day I noted I hadn't been feeling well for several weeks. One thing that did teach me was the how hard it can be to struggle back to life, but also it taught me that it's quite easy to become overly obsessed with stuff. And I'm going to try and make this the last video I make for at least several months about a certain historian. But this particular incident of him ripping apart a female clergyman about 2 weeks ago was onerous, and it's particularly onerous and particularly unpleasant. And I'm going to deconstruct it using his own video, as I found it awful. Let's share it, turn the sound on, and start it off. This is Simon Webb about 2 weeks ago, telling us about the possible potential new Archbishop of Canterbury to be a female asylum seeker. Notice the coded language he's gone with there. He, as usual, has to descend to the gutter to sell this stuff. Now, unfortunately, I'm still feeling quite dried out, so you'll see me take the odd drink as I do this. But let me put my own cards on the table first. I'm not an Anglican. Secondly, I think the whole stuff with Welby was represented an issue that the Anglicans must deal with, just as Catholics like myself must deal with the issues in our own church. Catholics, of course, don't view female ordination as valid, and we don't view ordination as valid at all in the Anglican churches due to divorce lines of separation. However, we do regard Anglican clergymen as genuine ministers in another sense, in so much as that they are generally trying to preach to people, and we do often have high respect for individuals who do. And they are also owed, like anybody else, the courtesy of truth. And while Simon put a link to this woman's life in here on a Wikipedia article, I wonder how many people read it, judging by the numerous comments underneath and the constant Muslim bashing, which seemed to be Simon's aim with this video. I'm going to play it and go through it bit by bit because I found this to be on a personal level, at least, one of the most awful videos Simon Webb has done recently. Now, ultimately, Simon Webb is a small blot on a very large landscape. He's a dingleberry on the arse of humanity, if you will. He's just yet another commentator churning out this far-right nonsense for clicks and likes and a bit of cash in the bank, because it seems it's all he's really capable of. It seems he's basically prostituted his intelligence and talent to producing this rubbish, sadly, as he actually does seem to have a reasonable intelligence, which could be used in far more productive ways. But let's listen to this.
Hello again. I have remarked before that a lot of the time these days we assume that the holder of some post or other, Prime Minister say, is the worst ever seen, and that anybody would be in.
This is a truism. It's equivalent to the old Chinese proverb about don't wish to live in interesting times or something like that.
Improvement. Some people thought that anybody at all must surely be an improvement on Liz Truss, for instance, when she was Prime Minister, and then realised that they had been wrong.
Really a bit difficult to form any overall opinion of Liz Truss given the remarkably short time she was there.
Rishi Sunak was much worse. I've felt like this myself before the election, believing that anybody must surely be an improvement on Sunak. I have been proved wrong, of course. The present holder of the office is far worse than Rishi Sunak.
Yes, and what relation they have to Justin Welby is, of course, beyond me, except for the fact that, of course, it allows Webb to get in a few hits at these guys.
It's the same story with the Archbishop of Canterbury. Many people thought that Rowan Williams was the worst man in the post they could remember. He was never an ordinary parish priest, more an academic. And
an issue that also arose with Pope Benedict in the Catholic Church. Yes, it's an issue that can make for an interesting discussion and speak to governance of the church and how they would approach it. But leaving that aside, let's keep going.
This meant that he had little understanding of the struggles of the average vicar. When he retired, many Anglicans thought that whoever was appointed must be an improvement.
Actually, it occurs to me, since Webb is going on about that struggles of the average vicar, you'll see how the person he's talking about here is well acquainted with the struggles of a very particular and painful kind.
Alas, they were landed with a former executive from an oil company.
And former executives from oil companies can't be Christian, Simon? Why? The Bible has people from all sorts of background in the New Testament. We have a tax collector, we have a prostitute, we have Pharisees, we have a chap from Ethiopia in the New Testament. That's the whole point. They're from differing levels of society.
Who has proved to be utterly disastrous. Once again, people are saying that whoever is next in the post must be better than Justin Welby. I wouldn't be too sure about this. Although I'm not a Christian, from 2000...
Which raises a question of why are you offering up a pundit's opinion on the issue of who the Anglicans would elect?
2004 till about 2014, 2015, I attended a local Anglican church every week and was quite involved there one way and another. I was bell ringing and ran the youth club there for years.
No problem in that. Plenty of people attend churches because their spouse or somebody else is from another faith background or another denomination, including myself.
I had the vicar round to tea and so on. This was because another member of the family was deeply religious, and I fell into the habit of church attendance as a result. For this reason, I'm interested in the fortunes of the Anglicans. Because the church is so with it these days and dedicated to causes like reparations for slavery, gay rights and various other things, it is exceedingly unlikely that a traditionalist will end up as a new archbishop.
Probably some truth of that, I imagine. But this is where that language underneath the video, will the new Bishop of Canterbury, a female asylum seeker, will show its true poison in a minute, where the venom concealed in the sting will come out to play, where the scorpion's tail will be revealed, and it will be revealed why Webb used that.
More likely, they will choose the most modern and up-to-date person they can lay hands on, somebody who will take the church even further into the world of fashionable left-wing quarters. In the first place, this probably means a woman. Imagine that, the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. What a coup that would be for progressives within the church. It gets better than this, though.
It might be nice, Mr. Webb, if at this point you had told us something about the background of the person you are talking about in detail.
Much better. You'd need to choose a bishop, of course, for the job, so that means selecting from a pretty small field if you want somebody who is both a woman and a bishop. There is, though, somebody who ticks not only those boxes, but also one or two others.
And we'll get to why Simon's assertion that she ticks these boxes is at best reductionist as we go on.
The Bishop of Chelmsford is a woman called Julie Frances Takani. She is, as viewers might have guessed, foreign.
Actually, Simon, her mother was English and very, very English, and she's related to William Thompson as one of her grandparents, whom you can look up on that Wikipedia article down there. Of course, Simon, you have neglected to mention that, knowing that 90% or so of your subscribers will not read that Wikipedia article. And having chucked the word foreign in, you know you can provoke a horrid, bit of stirring the porridge down there in the comments section.
Even better, she was a refugee to this country.
Yes, Simon. Did you know why she came to this country? For those who don't, go and have a look at that article. She came here after the Iranian Revolution. And she came here because her parents were persona non grata after the Iranian Revolution, because her father was a bishop as well. And as you can imagine, that didn't make him particularly popular back there in Iran. And she also came here because her brother was murdered by the new regime in Iran. and her parents were also attacked in an assassination attempt. Would it be nice if you'd mention some of that?
Arriving here as an asylum seeker when she was a teenager.
The fact that you've chosen to use the terms asylum seeker and try and, play with language like that is horrid, particularly horrid. You don't identify as a Christian, but you have in the past identified yourself as an adherent of the Noahide laws, which specify that people shouldn't spread mistruths in the community or cause tension. How do you equate this video with not doing that? And how do you equate this kind of partial recounting of the woman's life history that you're doing here? It would have taken you exactly 30 seconds to tell us that she came here due to the fact that her family were targeted by the new regime in Iran once the Shah fell, and that they were targeted for assassination. That's it.
Coming from Iran. It just gets better and better.
It does get better and better for you because you're trying to press her into service to serve your dodgy narratives.
To think of having an Archbishop of Canterbury who was a female asylum seeker.
But that's not what Gully Francis Takani is, mate. That's your version of Gully Francis Takani. Your nasty, horrid, mean-spirited, odious one you've erected in your head. And quite frankly, worryingly,
the icing on the cake is that she is a red-hot advocate of the removal of all restrictions on clergy entering into same-sex civil marriages. In other words, she thinks that male vicars should be able to be married to men and female vicars should be allowed to have wives.
And it's a policy I would disagree with her on, but it's something for Anglicans to sort out, and I'm not Anglican. And it would have been nice if you, instead of giving just that link down below, you could have spent at least 20 seconds talking about her instead of presenting this very potted and horrid summary of her. Let's end with him there because basically he's just going to rabbit on the same stuff. But what was more disturbing was at one point someone talked about her skin hue. And Simon responded that she has a dusky hue, as though that's got any relevance at all to her suitability to be a Christian. I assure you, if for some unknown reason Christ or his mother, the Theotokos, appear behind me in this video at some point, which is not going to happen, of course, but were they to do so, I don't think they would be likely to have my skin tone. It wouldn't affect their moral standing either, nor their ability to be a role model. And it's quite disgraceful to hear Simon doing this. Now, I'm going to offer at the end of this video a little bit more information about Gully Francis Takani, because this video really peed me off at a particular level because it's so deceitful and so nasty, and it's a masterpiece of weasel words and venom. Here we are. Gulnar Elnar, Gully Francis Takani, is an Iranian-born Anglican bishop. But if you actually go and read the article, and I suggest everyone dealing with Webb looks up everything he says and double and triple checks it, and then double and checks it again. Her mother was Margaret was a daughter of William Thompson, who was a bishop in Iran. Her father, Hassan Takani Kafi, was the Anglican bishop in Iran from 1961, and I'd heard of him before this video. And Hassan Takani Tafti is highly regarded by Christians in numerous denominations. He is regarded as a man who a lot of people have a huge amount of reverence for. When he died, although he was an Anglican, he actually popped up in the prayers for the week in my own church. And there's a good reason for that. When his own son was killed by the new regime in Iran, he actually prayed for their attackers. And he actually prayed for people who attacked him and his wife. And he was a constant advocate for trying to find peace and healing in the Middle East. Instead, what we have here is the Simon Webb attempt to insert more poison and venom. And it's a truly disgraceful video. It runs counter to all the tenets of Judaism or Islam or Christianity about truthfulness or presenting people in an honest light. An absolutely horrid and shocking video. Now, Mr. Webb lately seems to have become virtually unhinged with this nonsense since the loss of his Conrude deal and whatever. He seems to just sit there churning out this rubbish 3 to 4 times a day, and it's become virtually a stink of a sore off it, wafting through the screen almost. Where it's unlistable junk, basically. You couldn't even critique it because it's basically slanderous nonsense chucked out 3 times a day about people in an increasingly unhinged and unpleasant manner. But this particular video disturbed me because of the way he just couldn't tell the truth about this figure. But he will now claim, of course, if he responds, which he will not, of course, that he did so by sticking a link, that he knows nobody reads his links. He knows his own audience. He knows his audience are there to be sold, basically tickles on their tummies for confirmation bias about naughty Muslims and naughty foreigners. And with that, I think that's enough about him for a considerable period. His views are exceedingly ugly, and talking about him at length tends to infect the soul, sadly.